Coming up on Arirang News, President Moon Jae-in says South Korea will take the lead in developing a vaccine for the coronavirus. The government will cut red tape, invest in private sector research, and share the country's findings with the world. The Bank of Korea decides to leave its key interest rate unchanged. It's going to wait and see the effects of the big cut it made last month, and in the meantime work to boost liquidity. And some South Korean students are starting school today after delays of many weeks, but they're taking their classes online, which presents some challenges for the nation's education infrastructure. It's 5:00 p.m. here in Seoul. Thanks for joining us on Arirang News. I'm Devin Whiting. South Korea confirmed 39 new coronavirus cases on Thursday. This is the first time since February that the number has been under 40. The total now stands at 10,423. Of the new cases, 12 were in Seoul and 10 were in Gyeonggi-do province. The country also detected 10 imported cases. South Korea reported 4 more deaths, bringing the death toll to 204. 197 people were discharged from hospital. The total number of people who fully recovered now stands at 6,973, closing in on 7,000. As the world desperately looks for a cure for COVID-19, South Korean President Moon Jae-in has pledged all-out efforts from his administration to speed up the development of a vaccine. The state will be working with and supporting experts in the private sector through massive funding and by easing regulations. Kim Mo-kyun has the details.
President Moon Jae-in vowed that South Korea would take the lead in efforts to develop a vaccine for COVID-19. Speaking at a joint meeting with academics, medical experts, and researchers on Thursday, President Moon promised the government's utmost support and cooperation with the private sector for the development of a COVID-19 vaccine.
정부는 민관 협력을 강화하여 코로나19 치료제와 백신 개발을 확실히 돕겠습니다. 감염병 백신과 치료제 개발은 오랜 시간과 막대한 비용이 소요되기 때문에 민간 차원의 노력만으로는 단기간에 성과를 내기가 어렵습니다. 정부의 R&D 투자와 승인 절차 단축 등이 뒷받침되어야 코로나19 치료제와 백신 개발에 더욱 속도를 낼 수 있을 것입니다.
President said that the government will invest nearly $173 million on vaccine development. To ease regulations and speed up the process, the government will allow private researchers to use the government's biosafety laboratories and will supply researchers with necessary resources such as blood and samples from infected and recovered patients. The government will also strengthen the nation's vaccine industry by building a new virus research facility. While stressing the importance of solidarity and cooperation with the global community to bring an end to the pandemic, President Moon promised to actively take part in sharing the country's findings with global organizations such as the World Health Organization and the UN. Kim Mo-kyun, Arirang News.
The school year in Korea has been repeatedly postponed because of the coronavirus pandemic, but today it finally begins. Third-year students in middle school and high school seniors are the first to start, but they'll be learning from home until further notice. That presents some major challenges for the education system, as our Kim Hyo-sun reports.
While seniors of middle and high schools are starting school on Thursday via online classes, there are continued concerns about whether the never-tried mass online experiment will run without a hitch. Even until a day before restarting the new semester, the state-run educational broadcasting system carried out an in-depth test of its server, which had technical glitches in the process of expanding its capacity.
It's true that we're still concerned about stability, the server's capacity, and support system when connections surge exponentially.
Schools are also busy preparing for the start of the online classes. They have been repeatedly checking whether all students have smart devices at home. Schools have to make sure the devices are the latest models so students can take online lectures and that families with 2 or more kids have enough of them. Many schools are limiting two-way classes due to the capacity of the infrastructure, with the majority of them offering educational content provided by EBS. Online classes are realistically impossible for students with disabilities who go to special education schools. On April 16th, school will be starting for all grade levels, excluding first and second graders in elementary school. A bit of trial and error seems inevitable, as nearly 5.5 million students will be connecting to a relatively small number of servers at the same time. Kim Hyo-sun, Arirang News.
South Korea will be holding a general election next week on the 15th, and ahead of that, there'll be early voting this Friday and Saturday. The National Election Commission says eligible voters can cast their ballots at their local polling stations between 6 a.m. and 6 p.m. Up for grabs are the 300 parliamentary seats that'll make up the 21st National Assembly. After presenting a valid ID, voters will receive 2 ballot papers, one to pick candidates for their specific districts and one to choose candidates under the nationwide proportional representation system. In light of the coronavirus outbreak, all voters are required to wear masks and gloves, and their temperatures will be checked. They also need to stay at least a meter away from each other when in line and refrain from speaking inside polling stations. Voters with possible symptoms of COVID-19, such as a fever, will be able to cast their ballots at separate polling stations. Following an aggressive rate cut last month amid the COVID-19 outbreak, the Bank of Korea left its benchmark interest rate steady for April. Speaking to reporters, BOK Governor Lee Joo-yeol suggested that Korea might see growth this year fall below 1%. Yoon Jung-min reports.
At the Monetary Policy Board meeting for April on Thursday, the Bank of Korea kept the key interest rate unchanged at 0.75%, apparently to wait and see the effects of the rate cut in March. The key interest rate remains the lowest ever as of April amid coronavirus uncertainties hitting both the local and global economy. The central bank had lowered the rate 50 basis points in an emergency meeting in March to help the local economy get through the COVID-19 outbreak. The central bank governor said he expects South Korea's growth for this year to suffer, though the economy may slowly improve in the third quarter.
As there is a lot of uncertainty, we see it's not easy to achieve above the 1% goal, but largely depends on how the COVID-19 pandemic unfolds. Many predictions show growth rates of between 0 and 1%. But if the situation gets worse, of course, it'll be different.
The bank also expects consumer price growth to remain below its earlier projection of 1%. South Korean financial markets have seen fluctuations during March as global stock markets have plummeted. The Bank of Korea also unveiled additional measures to boost market liquidity on Monday. It said it will expand the scope of bonds it can buy up for the first time since the global financial crisis over a decade ago. The bank said it is adding 3 more bonds issued by special banks. Those include industrial financial debentures and bonds issued by the Industrial Bank of Korea and the Export-Import Bank of Korea. It also includes mortgage-backed securities issued by the Korea Housing Finance Corporation. And the BOK will expand bonds eligible for repurchase agreements.
State-run banks usually provide liquidity to companies through company bonds, while the Housing Finance Corporation often provides liquidity for households. The BOK's decision means it has prepared channels to provide liquidity in case of a credit crunch.
The Bank of Korea added it will conduct monetary policy in an accommodated manner to fend off downside risks for the local economy and financial markets amid the COVID-19 outbreak. Yoon Jung-min, Arirang News.
Time now for an in-depth look at the market news this afternoon, and for that I'm joined on the line by Dr. Kim Se-won, professor of economics at Ewha Women's University. Dr. Kim, thank you for making time today.
Good afternoon, Devin.
Well, the BOK, as we just heard, decided to leave interest rates where they are, having made a big cut last month. What does that decision tell us?
Bank of Korea has decided to hold the base rate at 0.75% today. It means that after going for an unexpected a 0.5% big cut in the last month, central bank will watch the markets respond to stimulation measures. In last month, along with the big rate cut, Bank of Korea also expanded liquidity relief measures to prevent possible credit crunch in financial market by purchasing unlimited RPs.
Right. Well, it does look like from the Bank of Korea, the comments today that Korea's economic growth this year might fall well short of what we were looking at just a matter of weeks ago. We're talking between 0 and 1%. What's your outlook on Korea's GDP?
Bank of Korea's most recent economic growth forecast for this year was 2.1%. But it doesn't look that that number reflects current declining economy. So today, the chairman of central bank said it would be tough to achieve even 1% level economic growth. I pretty basically agree with him. And he also added, under normal assumptions on the developments of the coronavirus pandemic, this year's growth rate would be above 0%. So that means he admits the possibility of 0% economic growth rate for this year.
And of course, analysts elsewhere have even predicted minus growth. But
right.
Stocks on Wall Street were up overnight on hopes that the pandemic is peaking or that it'll peak soon. What's the story in the global markets?
On Wednesday's market, S&P 500, which is representative U.S. market index, gained over 3.4% in a single day. So that was a pretty big up move after Monday's over 7% increase. Bernie Sanders, who is U.S. Democratic Party's presidential candidate, has ended his campaign, and it makes actually a positive impact on the market because he pulled Democratic Party to the left side. And also, U.S. government's aggressive cash-out program to citizens and corporations made a positive impact on U.S. stock market. European markets were pretty mixed between positive and negative over France, UK, and Germany because of something conflicts over Eurozone economic salvage packages.
Interesting that the Sanders campaign would have an effect like that. But Korean stocks today are up as well, at least in part on cue from Wall Street. What happened today in the local markets?
Korean markets were positive today. Kospi gained over 1.6% today, and Kosdaq also had a 1.4% increase. I think there comes a rising hope that coronavirus is approaching its peak in Korea because number of newly confirmed infected is declining slowly. So basically, this hope is slowly becoming a positive factor to Korean stock market.
Indeed. Well, in the bigger picture, the credit ratings agency Moody's has decided to keep its outlook for Korea at stable, but it does say that rating depends on the ability of Korea's public finances to handle the costs of a rapidly aging society. Always a concern. What do you make of that?
After the outbreak of coronavirus, there has been a big concern that major rating companies like Moody's can downgrade Korea's sovereign credit rating. But Moody's maintained yesterday Korea's sovereign rating at stable or AA2 in its regular updates. This is very much great rating because above Korea, there are only 6 countries in Moody's rating. They say that COVID-19 affects Korea's major industries, but these effects on country-level economy is kind of limited. They, however, gave a warning against worsening government debt, which could be an important issue after financing upcoming emergency basic income.
Right, and of course, some credit rating agencies are looking at downgrades for specific companies, but luckily not the country as a whole. All right, Professor Kim,
right.
Thanks so much for sharing your insights today. We appreciate it.
Thank you very much, Devin.
Now, the South Korean government is expanding its financial support for working parents that have to stay home because of the coronavirus outbreak. In a policy meeting Thursday, Finance Minister Hong Nam-gi said the government will increase the number of paid days for the so-called family care leave from the current 5 days to 10. And as for the amount, Hong said it'll be doubled for some families from the current $205 to up to a maximum of $411. Working parents staying home can apply if their children are 8 years old or younger or disabled and under the age of 18. And that brings us to the end of this newscast. Thank you for watching. More live news coming your way at 7 p.m. Korea time.